Hey everybody, thanks for coming with me while I make my kids' morning breakfast. I'm gonna do some quick muffins. I have to bake at night because I work during the day, so instead of relaxing at 9:30, here I am baking. Right here, I'm just getting my 2 cups of flour. I'm going to link the book that I use for quick breads. This is actually a yellow squash quick bread recipe, but I am using it to make muffins. I've never made them in a muffin version, so hopefully they pan out well. So right now I'm just preheating the oven to 350, going in with the baking powder. This is not yeasted, so we have baking powder and baking soda in this recipe to get it to rise. And essentially all I use for flavor are the typical baking spices. I use a little bit of cinnamon. It called for cloves, but I didn't have cloves. I swear I have some somewhere in this house and I can't find them. So I used allspice instead. I used a little bit of nutmeg, and I believe ginger. Now, this recipe might not be for everybody because it does involve shredding my squash. I bought this squash a little while ago, but it was starting to go bad, so I really needed to use it up, and this was just the best way that I knew to use it to get it back to like a more soft consistency because it was going to be baked with some liquids in it and it would kind of rehydrate that squash that was drying out. I was a little bit concerned about it, but it actually turned out really well. Now, I promise this looks like more activity than it really is. It takes like 2 minutes max to shred all that squash. So don't think it's really cumbersome. I assure you it's not. Unless you have like a manual grater, then I guess it could be a little bit more difficult. But if you have one of these types of graters, it's so simple. And I'll link it down below as well. One thing I will say is living a lifestyle kind of like this while still working can be a lot. Like I said before, I'm here at 9:30 at night doing this. It's kind of the last thing most people want to do after a day at work, but I just really want, well, my husband and I really want to just give our kids the best foods that are available. And, I think it's no secret that our food supply is not the healthiest. So we do what we can, and it's just a sacrifice we're willing to make. So now I'm just going in with the sugar after I shredded up the squash. We use coconut sugar. We prefer it for pretty much everything, but I definitely use it almost always for baking unless I'm baking bread. The kids seem to enjoy it, and it doesn't affect your glycemic index the same way that regular sugar does. And then here it called for sour cream, but I didn't have any. But we typically always have some plain organic Greek yogurt from Aldi. So that's what I use for all my ingredients, or I guess all my recipes that call for sour cream. I just use plain Greek yogurt. This recipe also called for, I think it was vegetable oil. We don't use vegetable or canola, so I just went in with organic olive oil. We've used it for so long, we can't tell the difference. Some of you might be able to, so you can use whatever oil you'd like. One thing to note about this recipe that, again, might seem cumbersome is the fact that it's very big on mixing your wet ingredients separately and your dry ingredients separately. So that's why you see my dry ones pushed over to the side and I'm mixing up all the wet ingredients. That does also include the squash. The recipe also didn't call for vanilla, but we like it, so I just add a splash of that, and then I go in and slowly mix the wet into the dry. Um, I don't know the science behind it, but I believe them. I did try to mix it all together one time, and it did not come out right. It didn't rise well. It just wasn't good. So now I specifically make sure to follow the recipe as it's written. So the other thing that this recipe calls for that I didn't use are apricot preserves. I did not use apricot preserves last year when I made this, and I have one kid who is super particular about what he eats. So I just went in with a little bit of half and half to loosen it up a little bit since the original recipe was missing that one wet ingredient. But that little bit of half and half worked perfectly to loosen up that batter. And now I'm just going in and putting it in my cupcake I don't know, wrappers, I guess you can call them. They're silicone. I like them because I can just wash them and reuse them, and I don't have to throw them out every time. It just seems a little bit wasteful to me. And I don't put these in the dishwasher because I used to use a bunch of silicone like bread pans, and I would put them in the dishwasher and they would just smell like soap, and no matter what I did, I couldn't get them out. So now I only hand wash anything that's silicone, and I just bake them until they're done. So the recipe calls for baking the quick bread for an hour. I knew they wouldn't take that long because they were in cupcake form. So I didn't set a timer. I just kind of went with my gut and what my muffins typically take. It's usually about 25 minutes, and they came out perfectly. So I'm just taking them out to cool. I don't want them to keep baking and get tough. So while these cool, I finally get to sit down, relax, and hang out before I have to go to bed and do it all over again. Thanks for hanging out with me.